In this concept, we will be discussing Mendel's experiment with garden peas and the laws of segregation and independent assortment that he discovered. Mendel obtained seeds that were true breeding, or produced the same characteristics over and over again. Some of the characteristics, or traits, that Mendel looked at were seed color, stem height, and flower color. Let's look at flower color. Mendel took two breeding plants and crossed them. One of them always produced purple flowers, one of them always produced white flowers. The resulting seeds, or children, or hybrids, all grew up to have purple flowers. What happened to the white flower characteristics? Was it gone forever? To find out, Mendel crossed the hybrids, or F1 generation, to get the F2 generation. Think of them as the grandkids of the original true breeding plants. Of the F2 generation, 3/4 of the seeds grew up to have purple flowers, and 1/4 grew up to have white flowers. So the white flower characteristic didn't disappear. It just went into hiding for a bit. We now call characteristics like the purple flowers in peas dominant characteristics. If you have at least one version of the gene for the flower color that results in purple, or the allele for purple flowers, the flower will be purple. Because the allele for white flowers is recessive, you must have 2 copies of the white flower gene to have white flowers in the plant, which leads to the law of segregation. Because plants, like people, are diploid, they have 2 copies of each chromosome. Plants have 2 copies of each allele. This figure shows the alleles for the F1 generation. They have received an allele for white flowers from one parent and an allele for purple flowers from the other parent. So the purple flower allele covers up the expression of the white flower allele, and the plant has purple flowers. By the way, we call this being heterozygous. The parents were homozygous, meaning that they had 2 of the same alleles for flower color. Back to the F1 generation. When they produce gametes, the gametes would have either the chromosome for the purple allele or the chromosome for the white allele. The chromosomes would separate during meiosis. So when the F generation were crossed, there was an equal chance of a purple allele meeting up with a white allele when the pollen fused with the egg. We use Punnett squares like this one to diagram the possible gamete combinations. Pollen is shown across the top and eggs down the side. Here we have a purple pollen fertilizing the purple egg, and you get a homozygous purple flower. For these two, you have purple meeting up with white alleles with heterozygous purple flowers. In other words, they have an allele for purple flowers and they have an allele for white flowers, making them heterozygous. You can't tell by looking what the difference is between the homozygous dominant and the heterozygous dominant are. The egg and pollen with the white flower alleles combined, and you have a homozygous white flower. You can tell what alleles the recessive homozygotes have. The flowers are white because they have 2 copies of the white flower alleles. You can't have more than 2 alleles. What if we cross plants with 2 different characteristics, like this yellow round seeded plant with this plant that produces green wrinkled seeds? Both green color and wrinkled seeds are recessive, so the F1 generation is going to be yellow and round, heterozygotes. Now, if the genes for the different characteristics didn't assort independently, or if the genes were linked on the same chromosome, you would see a distribution like this, with 3/4 of the seeds being yellow round and 1/4 being green and wrinkled. In other words, you would only see peas that looked like the grandparents. But in peas, the genes for seed color and seed shape are on different genes. So each characteristic can rearrange themselves in these combinations. See, some are yellow and round homozygotes, some are yellow round heterozygotes, some are yellow wrinkled, like these guys right here. They could be homozygote for yellow, but they can be heterozygote for yellow, but they have to be homozygote for wrinkled because the wrinkled allele is recessive. You would have to have 2 copies of the wrinkled allele to be wrinkled. The same goes for green down here. So you have 2 copies of the green allele to have green seeds. Now look down here at these types. You have 2 that look like the grandparents and 2 that don't look like the grandparents. If this is all very confusing, make sure to ask me to go over some Punnett squares during our question and answer session. It's much easier to see once you do a few. Also, I have some other professional videos if you want to see this topic presented in a different way.